The connection between the Vatican and the cocaine business has been fairly well established in what I've been saying so far. The Mafia is bordered on one side by the Vatican and on the other side by the CIA. It is hard to tell at this point in history where the Mafia leaves off and the Vatican begins on one side, or on the other side where the Mafia leaves off and the CIA begins. It's easier to walk around without getting the glare directly all the time. The Knights of Malta. Now, let's hear it for the Knights of Malta. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see we got some people with a sense of gallows humor in the house. I will now tell you one of the secrets of Freemasonry. If I get out of here alive, the Masons are no more infallible than the Mafia. The Mafia couldn't kill Fidel Castro. We'll see if I can reveal Masonic secrets and escape. The 32nd degree of Freemasonry, which is the highest degree that you work your way through, the 33rd degree is honorary. The 32nd degree of Masonry deals with the death of Jacques de Molay of the Knights Templar in the Middle Ages. He was denounced to the Inquisition by the Knights of Malta. And the 32nd degree, the candidate is told that the Masonry exists for one purpose and one purpose only, to combat the Knights of Malta, who, according to this degree, are continually plotting, unceasingly, unselfishly, without any regard for their own lives or comfort, in a fanatically devoted religious way, just like the Grey Wolves believe Allah has divinely ordained them to wipe out the state of Israel. The Knights of Malta, according to the 32nd degree of Freemasonry, have taken the same kind of oath that God wants them to wipe out Protestantism and make the whole Western world entirely one Catholic hegemony with the Pope on top like it used to be in the Middle Ages. And it is the function of Freemasonry to fight that forever. That's the 32nd degree. You don't find that out until you've gone through the first 31 degrees, generally. Nobody can find out the secrets of Masonry unless they are willing to spend at least 4 or 5 days in a large library or go through all the initiations. I didn't go through all the initiations. I went around to old secondhand bookstores. The secrets of Masonry are not that hard to find out. The Knights of Malta still exist. They didn't go out of existence when Masonry was founded. The head of the Italian secret police, Mussolini, who was a member of P2, was also a Knight of Malta. Licio Gelli, whom I've been talking a great deal about, who put together the cocaine, heroin, Vatican Bank connection, and was taking money from the CIA and the KGB at the same time. He was a Knight of Malta. Michele Sindona of the Franklin Bank, convicted of 65 counts of fraud and of murdering a bank examiner. He was a Knight of Malta. Roberto Calvi of the Banco Ambrosiano and the Cisalpine Bank, he was a Knight of Malta. Ever hear of William Casey? He was a Knight of Malta. Ever hear of Alexander Haig? Another Knight of Malta. Ever hear of William Buckley Jr.? Another Knight of Malta. Claire Booth Luce, a Dame of Malta.
She also was one of the people who popularized the use of LSD in this country, which is something that most people forget, that she and her old man took acid together and used, and it was through Life magazine that it was first presented, that the use of LSD was first presented.
Yeah, Claire Booth Luce and Henry Luce took LSD, wrote glowing accounts of it, and have been trying to conceal that ever since. You can't get anybody in the Luce Empire to admit that Henry and Claire once were bigger acid heads. After Leary went to prison in 1970, about 90% of the people in the country who were fans of LSD suddenly changed their minds and wouldn't talk about it anymore. I knew hundreds of psychologists who used to say, we agree with Tim Leary, and as soon as he went to prison, they became as silent as moonlight on a gravestone. The Knights of Malta have their international headquarters in the Vatican. The Vatican Bank, of course, is inside the Vatican too. Nobody knows what goes on in the Vatican Bank except the managers of the Vatican Bank and God. Italian bank examiners cannot get in and look at the records because the Vatican is a sovereign state independent of Italy. The investigating magistrates who've been trying to make sense out of the P2 conspiracy since 1982 can't get in and look at the records of the Vatican Bank because it's not part of Italy. The Vatican Bank is the economic equivalent of a black hole in physics. Nothing gets out of a black hole once it goes in, and money that goes into the Vatican Bank disappears from the profane view of ordinary human beings. Only archbishops and God know what happens to it after that. There is a widespread suspicion among the Italian police and investigating magistrates that a lot of the money ended up in those Swiss bank accounts, one of which Licio Gelli was trying to get money out of when he was arrested. Licio Gelli was working for the communists and the Gestapo in World War II, for the KGB and the CIA in the 50s and 60s, and so it should be no surprise that he managed to be a Freemason and a Knight of Malta at the same time, even though those two are allegedly in a warfare for 700 years now. Licio Gelli went back from Uruguay to Switzerland recently and got arrested again. This time they managed to deliver him to Italy, and he was found innocent of the charge of blowing up the Bologna railway station. He's awaiting trial on other charges. Roberto Calvi fled from Italy when he was indicted and was found hanging from a bridge in London with bricks stuffed in his pockets. Bricks are symbols of Freemasonry. He was hanging where the rising tide had covered his dead body. The first degree oath in Freemasonry says, if I ever betray my fellows in the craft, may I be hanged where the rising tide will cover my dead body. So it's pretty obvious that Calvi was hanged by the Freemasons, or by people who devoutly wish us to think he was hanged by the Freemasons. His wife claims he was hanged by the Vatican because he was going to turn state's evidence against Archbishop Marcinkus, but she's only a hysterical widow. One of my principal sources on the cocaine and heroin links of various banks is Penny Lerno, a journalist for the National Catholic Reporter, who first got onto the trail of the cocaine and heroin laundering business in Miami and was shocked when it led her back to the Vatican. She went to her editor and said, I'm finding out more and more about the Vatican Bank. Can I print this? And he said, go ahead, keep digging and we'll print it all. And they did. And that's why the American Catholic Church, I more and more suspect, is going to split from the Vatican in the near future. I think it's going to be the biggest heresy since Martin Luther. Most American Catholic priests do not tell their parishioners that it's a sin to use birth control, which the Pope still says it is. And in many other ways, the American Catholic Church is moving away from the Vatican. If I would try to sum up the general picture as I have put it together over the last 20 years or so, studying nutty conspiracy literature and serious journalism and trying to figure out how much truth there is in every source and comparing sources and so on, I would say that if you want to know what life in the United States is going to be like under George Bush and Dan Quayle, and since the CIA has now moved into the White House, so to speak, and since the CIA is almost indistinguishable from the Mafia, a British journalist named Gordon Thomas, in a book called The Year of Armageddon, says the Pope has a meeting with the CIA chief in Rome once a week, and the Knights of Malta carry messages back and forth between the Vatican and CIA headquarters in Arlington regularly. So the CIA, the Knights of Malta, the Mafia, are more and more becoming one big happy family. So if you want a good view of what's ahead for this country, look at the Godfather saga, all 3 parts of it, all the way through, twice, and then read the last 200 years of Sicilian history. Many people find it very hard to believe that the Mafia killed JFK. A lot of people still think the last official government word on the Kennedy assassination was delivered by the Warren Commission. Now that shows the tremendous effect the mass media have, because in actual fact, in actual historical fact, the last official word to come out of the American government was the verdict of the House Select Committee on Assassinations. And they concluded there was a conspiracy, and there were at least 2 gunmen, one on the grassy knoll. And the chief counsel for the committee, Professor Blakey, said in a press conference of his own, going a little bit further than the committee, the Mafia did it. All the evidence points that way. This is no surprise to anybody who studied Sicilian history or Italian history recently. Every 2 weeks or so, a politician gets blown out of his car, or an investigating magistrate gets shot down in the streets in Italy. The Mafia does not put up with crap from anybody. That's how they got to be the most feared organization in the Western world. Now, the CIA first started working with the Mafia before they were even called the CIA. Back when they were called the OSS, and Lucky Luciano, the Mafia ruler of New York, was in prison temporarily. They made a deal with him. He made a deal with the Sicilian Mafia to help the American troops and not help Mussolini's troops during the invasion of Sicily. And America conquered Sicily very easily with the help of the Mafia. From then on, the symbiosis between the Mafia and the CIA has been growing steadily every year. The most interesting aspect of it all is that as this symbiosis or synergy has proceeded over the last 40 years, the spooks think they're using the Mafia. The Mafia thinks that it's using the CIA. And one of them is very badly deceived. Now, the CIA is full of pretty damn tough, mean sons of bitches, no doubt about that. But who are they? They're a bunch of Princeton and Yale graduates, basically. I don't think they are quite as mean, nasty, Machiavellian, and devious as the Mafia. So I think the Mafia is using the CIA, and the CIA just thinks they're using the Mafia. But who stands behind the Mafia? The Knights of Malta and the Vatican. And so, again, I say, Roberto Calvi, the banker who was found hanging from the bridge, the guy who ran the Cisalpine Bank with Archbishop Marcinkus, Roberto Calvi used to tell everybody, whenever the subject of literature came up, there's only one book you got to read. One book shows the world the way it really is. Read that book and you'll know how to get ahead in the banking business, any other business. You'll know how to become rich. You know what book that was? Not The Prince by Machiavelli. The Godfather by Mario Puzo. So I think it's time now that we have a break, and then I'll have a question and answer period. But just remember, if you want to know what the future is like, read The Godfather very carefully. Pasta Vazul.